Hello, good morning. Today we are going to be going over the 6 books I read in August. Now, usually I read a lot more books in a month, but that's because I cheat a little bit and I listen to audiobooks. And I only say cheat a little bit because I know some people don't see audiobooks as real books, and I disagree. So let's get into the stats. I was a very slow reader this month. I had a lot going on in my personal life, so I just didn't have a lot of time for regular reading. But I still ended up reading about 2,069 pages, but it took me around 8 days to finish a book. One of the books I finished was My Dark Vanessa, which is my favorite book. This is the third time this year I read it. I will talk more about this book later. But I started reading it in June, and then I took a little break, and then I finished reading it. I in general I can read that book very fast, but it ended up taking me around 21 days to read it in total, like of active reading time. Um, but that's a rant for another time. The 3 moods I touched on the most were dark, tense, and mysterious, which is a little disappointing because I have been making an active effort to at least put like a lighthearted somewhere in there. I do have lighthearted in the stats in the pink, but that book was a Diary of a Movie Kid book that I read just for fun. But next month, I will have at least 2 books in the lighthearted category, and neither of them will be a Diary of a Movie Kid book. Mark my words. My pace was split directly down the middle, with 50% of it being fast and 50% of it being medium. Page number wise, most of the books I read were just in the mid range of 300 to 499 pages, which is about the average page of a book. Length of a book, I mean, sorry. And only one of the books I read, which equated to 17%, was less than 300 pages. Yeah, I read a lot of mystery thrillers this month. Typically, I read a lot more literary fiction, but I was just in the mood for a more lighthearted mood. And I'm not saying like books about murder are lighthearted. I am just saying that like reading a fun murder mystery that took place on a train was a lot more fun than reading more books like My Dark Vanessa. All the books I read were print. I had one 5 star, but that was a reread, so no new 5 stars. One 4 star, one 3.5, one 3 star, and one 2.75 star. Should we talk about My Dark Vanessa? Okay. I adore this book. Like, this is my favorite book of all time. It's annotated to the point where like there's not a single page, there's barely a single page that is not annotated. This is how much I love this book. There's just something I want to underline on every single page. Now, before I get into this review, I just want to warn you guys to check your trigger warnings before you read this book. There's definitely a lot of trigger warnings around like student teacher relationships, CSA, basically like all the trigger warnings that apply to Lolita, I would apply to this book, because it's kind of a response to Kate Elizabeth Russell's thoughts on Lolita. But this book takes place in 2 timelines. It takes place in the 2000s, like the early 2000s, 2000 to 2005 ish, and 2017. And the period in 2000 is covering Vanessa's relationship with Jacob Strain, her English teacher, in her sophomore year of high school. They obviously enter a very inappropriate relationship, but like Vanessa to me is the perfect victim. She is unlikable, original. It's just such a raw account and telling about surviving something as terrible as a relationship with a grown man. In 2017, Jacob Strain is outed for what he's been doing to girls Vanessa's age, like around 15, 14, young girls. And Vanessa's trying to learn how to navigate this landscape. So there's a lot of commentary on responsibility and what it means to be a victim and what victimhood really is and how you claim your victimhood. I love this book. I just adore it. I'm definitely going to be reading it again before the year ends. 5 stars, 6 stars, whatever you people say when you love a book. This is my favorite book of all time. The next book I read, I didn't really love, but I had like a fun time. It was With a Vengeance by Riley Sagar, and I have such a relationship with this author. Like, me and him, low-key have beef. But I feel like everybody who reads Riley Sagar, like, low-key has beef with him, you know? He's just one of those authors. And for some reason, his fandom, if you can even call it that, reads every single book he publishes year after year. Because I can't stop reading this man. Todd. His real name's Todd, just so you guys know. He made his name Riley Fun fact, because it would appeal more to a female audience because it's like gender ambiguous, which makes me feel icky. But with Vengeance is kind of like Murder on the Orient Express, by Agatha Christie. It's kind of your classic train murder mystery. Essentially, Anna's father was responsible for some sort of explosion, and he was blamed for it, but he was not responsible for it. Instead, it was this, I think it was 6 or 8 people. So she takes these 6 people on a train and she wants them to repent for their crimes. So she's going on this long train voyage where all these people are going to repent for their crimes. I found it enjoyable. I found it fun. I found Anna dumb as rocks. I was really upset most of the way through, but I still read it. It was 2.75 stars. I actually bought this book and I immediately loaned it to my library, like gifted it to my library because the whole list was way too long, but I wanted to read this book for the Literary Dead Book Club run by Books and Lala. So I bought it from Target for 20% off. Although, I don't know if this is a scam or not, but every time I go to Target and I like look at the books, they're always 20% off. So do with that information as you will. But I rated it 2.75 stars. I had a fun time. I would not recommend this book though, but if you're looking for a fun kind of no thoughts, head empty with a lot of twists mystery thriller, I do recommend it. The next book I read was The Housemaid is Watching by Freida McFadden. I'm still on my Freida McFadden kick. If you watched my last video, which was from my March wrap up, I read a lot of Freida McFadden books, and I read a lot of Freida McFadden books in July, but this book I just read one, and it's the third book in the Housemaid series, so I'm just going to describe what the first book is about, because I don't want to do any spoilers, but it's essentially just a continuation of the series, and it takes place, I think, like 11 years after the second and a half book, because there's a novella in there. But essentially, it's about this woman named Millie. And Millie is a housemaid for this rich family, but she starts to suspect that the woman who she is housekeeping for is in an abusive relationship. So she kind of like becomes this like kick-ass like housemaid, and she goes on this journey through these books where she essentially kills abusive partners with this man named Enzo. I rated it 3 stars. It was fine. Not my favorite book of the series. It just took place 11 years later, and it basically followed Enzo and Millie living out their lives together. But I don't know, it felt kind of flat for me. I feel like her writing could be stronger. I definitely do feel like it was getting stronger throughout the books, but it was a lot more like contemporary, romancy book, which I don't really love. So I'm not that surprised it kind of got a lowish rating. Although 3 is still pretty good, in my opinion. But I still had an overall fine time. It was a fine time. And I'm definitely going to finish reading all the Freida McFadden books. I actually want to film a video where I tier rank all her books. The next book I read was Julie Chan is Dead. Now, I went into this book knowing almost nothing about it, which I kind of want anyone who watches this video to also go into kind of blind. I thought it was a mystery thriller. It's not. There's a culty horror element to it, and that's all I'm going to say about it. Like genre-wise. I rated it 4 stars. I had a really, really good time. I love books about kind of like the descent into madness. But it follows this woman named Julie Chan who has a twin sister named Chloe Van Houston, or Houston, I forget. And Chloe dies, and Julie Chan kind of goes over to her house, finds her dead, and she's like, well, I could A, say that Chloe's dead, or B, say that Julie is dead and take over Chloe's life. So that's what she does. It has a lot of, and Chloe's a famous influencer, by the way. It has a lot of commentary on influencing and also race discrepancies in the influencer world. It reminds me a little bit of Yellowface by R.F. Kuang. But I rated this book 4 stars. I had a really good time with it. There was just, the ending felt a little flat for me. I felt like it ended really abruptly, and the middle of the book kind of dragged a little bit, but once you get to the island portion, it really like sped up for me. Samantha Dowling finally came out with a new book, Too Old for This. I rated it 3.5 stars, which is pretty good for a thriller. It's not my favorite Samantha Dowling book. My favorite one is For Your Own Good, I believe. But also, I started reading these books when I was still in high school, so I bet you if I reread them, I would have a different opinion of them, just because my reading taste has matured a lot. But this book follows an old lady named Lottie. She's, I think, 76. And she's a serial killer. This woman comes over to her house, Plum Dixon, and the book starts with Lottie killing her. And basically, the book follows the consequences of Lottie killing Plum. There's like an investigator after her. Her family is after her because they know she killed this woman, but no one can prove it. And she's gone away with murder for her entire life. She thinks she's a serial killer. So this is just really fun. Just really funny. Like, it was a really funny, lighthearted read. I'm surprised it didn't give me a lighthearted stamp on my storygraph, but whatever. Um, I just found it really fun and light as a book about murder can be. And overall, I had a good time. And that's all that matters sometimes. Spoiler warning ahead, I'm gonna say whatever I want about this book, because it's the ninth book in the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series, and there's a movie about it. If you really want, like, yeah, okay. As the series goes on, Jeff Kinney runs out of original ideas and he just makes the books a lot more action-packed, and you can definitely see the beginning of the descent into that in this book. This book is ridiculous. There's this family that Greg Heffley calls the Beardos that he's convinced is like following his family, like stealing their stuff. And they just like keep popping up and they keep reoccurring to the point where it's just really unrealistic. Like, usually the things that happen in these books are pretty realistic, pretty like, haha, he's a funny middle schooler. But this one I just found a little bit over the top. I don't rate my Diary of a Wimpy Kid reads, just because I feel like that's a little bit unfair. But if I were to rate it, I'd probably give it like, I had such a good time reading this, is the thing. So I'd probably give it 3 stars. I was gonna say 2.5, but I had such a fun, like, it was so ridiculous and so over the top, but it was so funny. And at the end of this day, this is a comic book. Like, it's not meant to be the most realistic. I'm like rating this in the context of the Diary of a Wimpy Kid universe. But yeah, also I want to mention that there's this pig in the book, and they give the pig, like, they win this pig at the state fair. And then they're like, okay, this pig's causing too much trouble. We don't need a pig. We don't want a pig. And so they give it to a petting zoo. And then later on in the book, Manny learns how to speak fluent Spanish, talks to 2 guys in fluent Spanish because he has a CD on the ride, like, about Spanish, and somehow on the ride, like, that he sleeps through most of the car ride. He learns fluent Spanish. I don't know how many times I'm going to say that. And he gets them to take him back to the petting zoo so he can get the pig back. So, just a ridiculous time. But I do highly recommend the Diary of a Wimpy Kid series in general. And I just needed something to break up my reading experience. So those are the 6 books I read this month. I had a really good time reading, even though I didn't read that much. I read 2 books in a week at one point, which was really good for me. And I just, like, overall, I would rate my reading journey this month 4 stars. So let me know in the comments how your reading life is going, what you read in August, and what you're planning to read in September. It's already September, my God. So yeah, that's all. Goodbye.